So again, we're all here for the Citizen Science Project, A Day in the Life of the Indian River Lagoon. Again, I'm really happy that you all are joining us today. This is a program that is coordinated by ORCA, the Ocean Research and Conservation Association. My name is Missy Weiss. I am the Director of Citizen Science and Education with ORCA. And this is a program that we have now coordinated for, this will be the 5th year. And so this is a really big celebration for us. It's a wonderful way to get students and adults and organizations all along the lagoon engaged in citizen science research and learning more about the precious and amazing resource, the Indian River Lagoon. If you're not familiar, we are a nonprofit. We really aim to protect and restore aquatic ecosystems and the organisms that they sustain. And we do this in 4 major ways. We do this through our innovative technology. So we have real-time water monitoring devices throughout the Indian River Lagoon. They're taking and measuring water quality at 18 stations, and at any point you or your student or your organization can go onto our website and look at that information and look at all of the data that's being produced from these Kilroys. We also do this through our applied science research. We do it through our educational work. So we work with schools, our adult populations in a variety of formats. So we go into the classroom, we provide fee-for-service lessons. We provide after-school programs and summer programs. And in 2019, we also expanded to kind of leverage all of the incredible science research that we were doing to include community members. And in doing so, we developed our citizen science department. And so for A Day in the Life of the Indian River Lagoon, it's this beautiful bridge between education and citizen science. It's about giving students the opportunity to be actual research scientists for the day, learn a little bit more about that precious resource of the lagoon, and all the while being a part of something that's much larger and more important than themselves, which is really the health of the lagoon. So at ORCA, we have 4 citizen science projects in addition, or including A Day in the Life. So we have pollution mapping. That is really a monitoring program where we have teams go out quarterly and collect water and sediment samples to be analyzed. And that's really with the purpose of creating a longitudinal data set. We also have the One Health Fish Monitoring Project. This is a project that we incorporate students in fairly often. It looks at the transfer of toxins and toxicants from the Indian River Lagoon into fish that are commonly consumed by humans. We do this through our Land to Sea Citizen Science Monitoring Project. And so this really is our restoration work. So we do a combination of living shorelines as well as buffered shorelines. And then finally, there's A Day in the Life of the Indian River Lagoon, which is obviously why you're here today. So what is A Day in the Life? So like I said, if you're new to the project, this can be completely foreign to you, but you're here for a reason. And so I think probably what speaks to people mostly about this project is it's an experiential project. It's a chance for students to get out into the lagoon, collect actual science research, and then as they're doing so, they're really a part of a larger community-based program. Because as you'll learn in a couple of minutes, this is not something that's just happening in Indian River County or Martin County or St. Lucie County. It's being conducted on the same day up and down the entire length of the Indian River Lagoon, from Ponce Inlet all the way down to Jupiter Inlet. So we have this huge collaboration of schools and organizations and agencies coming together on the same day to collect the same information. So the way that it generally works is that your school, your homeschool co-op, your family, or even your business will adopt a specific site along the lagoon, and you'll be responsible for monitoring that site. Oftentimes, we like to partner our groups up with local environmental organizations. And so that's so that they can provide their expertise, their professionalism, share their research, and also provide students with the opportunity to learn, well, what does an actual scientist or marine biologist do? And so it's a way for schools or students to partner with those local environmental organizations and then go out on that day in October 6th, and collect the same information on the same day. And what that does is create a snapshot, an environmental snapshot of what your specific sampling site looks like at this moment in time. And so while that one little snapshot may not be valuable, when we put all of those pictures together, we get a really good visualization of what the health of the lagoon is looking like. And when we compare that year after year after year, we're starting to really start seeing if there are any patterns or trends that are happening either within your site or between sites along the lagoon. So an example of some of these partnerships may be what we've had in the past. So we've had our incredible partner at Brevard Zoo partner with Heritage High School. Their class went out to Long Point County Park and they monitored that site. So we can kind of make it look like however we want. In some cases, I have schools that choose not to partner with an environmental organization, and that's fine. And in other cases, I have environmental partners who choose not to partner with schools. And again, that's okay. The wonderful thing, and that I hope you realize throughout this webinar, is that a day in the life can be flexible. And so we'll kind of, hopefully I'll be able to give you what that picture looks like in a second. There are numerous objectives and goals to a day in the life. I'll read through them quickly. Really, one of the most valuable is to give students the ability to really start appreciating the Indian River Lagoon, having a better understanding of its importance and why we need to care for it. They'll have a better understanding of those environmental health stressors and what's impacting the health of lagoons. So they may have heard that the lagoon's health is declining. They may have heard of the mortality events with the manatees, but do they know why? And can they be a part of that? A day in a life connects Floridians with nature, such a valuable and important thing to be able to provide our students. It prepares students to become better stewards. So how can they care for the lagoon? If they won't be able to care for it if they don't better understand it and the natural resources around it. It also gives students the chance to be actual citizen scientists. So we don't take the data that's produced on a day in the life and put it in some drawer and never look at it again. We are creating a long-term, large-scale database, and their contribution is valuable. And so that is something that I like to instill in all of the students and really hope to pass along to the teachers, is to let their students know that this is a really big deal, and they should be proud of how they're contributing and being a part of it. And then again, I've mentioned this several times already, but a day in the life is not just a really cool field trip. It's meant to be a learning opportunity, a chance for students and schools to collaborate with others and understand that they're not the only ones out there on that day, that they have a responsibility because there are hundreds of other individuals out along the lagoon collecting this data. Just to kind of give you a little bit of facts and figures, the first year we did a day in the life of the Indian River Lagoon was in 2018. I should also mention that this isn't a project that's unique to Florida. We have done a day in the life in New York around the Hudson River. We've done it out on Long Island. It's actually been done in Puerto Rico and even in Italy. And so this isn't necessarily a brand new project, but it's new to us in Florida. And so 2018 was that first year. 2018, really great start. 2019, wonderful as well. We all know what happened in 2020 and 21, but I just wanted to highlight that even though COVID impacted us, and we all know how, we were still able to maintain the data set that we are so desperately trying to do with the help of organizations, agencies, individuals. And so we're able to maintain and keep that data set together. So now moving forward, I'm just excited to see how it continues to grow and expand. This is the list of all of the current or 2021 sampling locations. But again, we can expand if there's something or a park that you want to, or that you really enjoy, we can expand to that. So that's really kind of the stats of where a day in the life has come from. Let's look about how we actually achieve what we do on that day. So a day in the life is structured and organized around an educator packet. So what we try to do is provide everyone who's leading a group, a school, or an organization with essentially the same manual. The manual breaks up a day in the life into 5 stations. And so I want you to visualize that if you're a teacher and you're planning on bringing either your class, your grade level, that you will essentially be dividing up your students into 5 stations. They can either rotate through each of the stations if you have time, or if you don't have enough time, you can assign groups of students to a station. They go in, they do it, they collect that data, and then they go. So there kind of comes that flexibility piece that I was mentioning about. If you're planning on bringing, hundreds of students, which I do have a couple of schools who do that, they break that group in half. One group may be doing a beach cleanup, the other group is doing a day in the life stations. They have lunch, they switch. So, there is, again, that flexibility piece. But the structure of a day in the life is divided into these 5 stations. We provide resources to you. So again, I want to emphasize that this is not just a feel-good field trip. It is so much more than that. And so you do have to recognize that there's some form of preparation and some level of preparation for whoever decides to take this on. If you're a teacher, it's your responsibility to really think of how you're going to organize things, learning the manual yourself, and then being able to then pass along the skills to your students. And so this is all achievable, but it's something to be able to recognize as well. So we provide resources on our website. The website is there. It has that educator manual. It has training videos. So if you wanted to teach your students how to use a refractometer, which is what this student is doing here, there's a little, 3-minute video that teaches you how to do that. There's little PowerPoints on tips and tricks of things that I've just found along the way. I've been doing this project and coordinating a day in the life for, I don't even know at this point, maybe 8 years or so. So I can certainly help you and guide you along the way. I personally will help you assist in any kind of coordination or organization of your school. And then the other resource that we were able to start instilling last year, which is really exciting, is we have a limited number of free lessons that we can come into your school and provide to your students. So we provide 2 lessons before a day in the life. And then after a day in the life is over, we'll come back in and we'll provide 3 additional lessons that utilize data from a day in the life to kind of support the standards that you're already teaching. And so we do have those lessons to offer as well. We really think that a day in the life is most appropriate for upper elementary, so grade 5, middle school, and up to high school. It's a little more challenging for those younger grades, but I have had the situation too. And so I'm just putting this out there that if you do have a younger grade level, that it's sometimes you can partner with a high school and those high schoolers can mentor the younger students. So again, there's that flexibility. Let me go into a little bit more detail about those stations so you know exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And again, this is all from the manual. The first station is water quality. I'm sure you can imagine that important stations. For us, a day in the life is valuable, it's important, it's great to be able to give students the ability to start becoming citizen scientists and actual research scientists, but it's also really about the data and being able to accumulate large amounts of data with the help of citizen scientists, but data that is usable and reliable. So this is a very important group or station for us. So you can see here all of the tests that the students and or organizations would be responsible for collecting. And because there's so many, what some of the teams discovered last year is that it's very helpful to actually break station 1 into 2 subgroups, group 1 and group B, or group A and group B. And so what they do in group 1 is they're looking at temperature, they're measuring the amount of salt in the water, so they're looking at salinity, they measure pH, the amount of oxygen in the water. Obviously, that's important for what's going to be able to live there and be happy and healthy. We look at how turbid the water is. So is it clear? Is it a little cloudy? And then we also look to see if there is fecal coliform. So that's a bacteria associated with mammals, mammalian waste. The other group has less to do, but it's so important. And so these are some of those nutrients that you sometimes will hear scientists in the community talking about when we go to the health of the lagoon, because when phosphate, nitrate, and nitrate become out of balance and they're too high, they can instigate harmful algal blooms or other environmental stress. And so we have our students collect and measure that as well as alkalinity. So you'll see here, there's a little sign that says high priority. That means that if you don't have a lot of time and you know that you have to get back on the bus sooner than you'd like, that you need to emphasize your time on station number 1. Station number 2 is another high priority station. So this is the other one that provides very, very important and valuable data to us. It's a chance for the students to look at what is living in the lagoon and around the lagoon and the habitat. And so you can see in this picture here, we have students getting into the lagoon, they're getting ready to seine, so they drag a net. And then what they're doing is they're pulling that net 3 times and they're going to categorize, well, what did they find? What is it? How many of each they are? And essentially what they're doing is creating a survey. It's by far one of the best stations. If you've never seined before, it's a blast. But again, it's very important. It helps us better understand the biodiversity that's in the area and whether that specific site is conducive to life. So it's a great one. And so that's station number 2. Station number 3, we look at the physical parameters. So if you're at a site that has tide involvement, then you measure the tides, currents, the speed, cloud cover, air temperature, wind direction, and speed. So that's our physical conditions. Station number 4 is looking at your site in a little bit more of a descriptive manner. So what is the bottom type? What is the bottom type composed of? Does it have seagrass? Is it rocky? Is it oyster? Is it full of oyster shells? Is it all muck like this picture here? That's really telling and can really help understand how healthy your site is. So Site 4 really looks at those physical characteristics of the site. It asks your students to map the site, so it really hones in on those mapping skills. And then they're also able to start analyzing, well, is there anything living at my site in the sediments, that part that we don't always think about, but that bottom, is there any bivalves? Are there any worms, or is it just ooey gooey muck? So site number 4 kind of looks at those physical characteristics and asks the students to start really diving into that. Station number 5, and I really like to say that it's optional, but if you found yourself in the scenario where either you didn't have enough students or you weren't really quite sure if you wanted a whole group to do this, station number 5 is important because it provides documentation, but you don't necessarily need 12 students to do it. This is just a chance for the students to take photos, take videos, interview your environmental organizations or partners, interview the students, and really capture, well, what are we finding in those nets, so that if I don't know what it is, or if I'm unsure how to identify it, I can pass it on to Missy or people at Orca and they can help me identify it, or I can pass it on to my environmental partner and they can help me ID what this particular fish is. So it's a really great way to not only just provide this artistic component to a day in the life, but it also provides the necessary documentation to support why we're identifying things that they are or seeking help when we need it. I will say, though, that the cool thing about the documentation station is if you have an art department or a videographer or an IT kind of situation at your school, we've had some really lovely documentaries be created from their experiences at a day in the life. And so again, it provides those students who may not necessarily have this interest in science to still get engaged because they're providing that outlet for artistic creativity. And so we've had some students submit their documentaries to competitions like Youth Making Ripples. And then to make it even a little bit more valuable, although honestly, think about everything that we're asking our students to do so far, is that it's, as I mentioned, it's a really great place and time to introduce students to what it means to be a scientist. What does it mean to be an environmental partner? And so we always encourage our environmental professionals to share a little bit about the research that they do, how their approach to solving the problems of the lagoon are being solved, and then maybe provide a way for students to start thinking about, well, what could I do? And can I volunteer for that organization? And then in the past, we've also kind of embedded other citizen science projects into a day in the life. So the first couple of years, we asked students to take an additional water sample. And then we provided that water sample to faculty at FIT, and they looked at that data for environmental DNA. The last 2 years, I think it is, we've asked people to also take an additional water sample, at which then Orca analyzes glyphosate, which is an herbicide. And so, you know, they're really being a part of the project and science as it is, whether they realize it or not. And so I kind of mentioned this whole next section, which is stewardship opportunities. And that's just something a little extra. It really helps with larger groups and kind of making them more manageable is, like I said, splitting a larger group into two. So maybe the first half goes and does a cleanup or some kind of inventory of marine debris, and the other group is doing a day in the life, and then they switch. So there's these extension opportunities. I've had other schools who have a focus more on art or language arts, and they will create a 6th station where they'll have their students either draw, write a poem, or do some other kind of activity that they want to focus on. Here's just a couple of examples of data. Like I said, really the intention of a day in the life is to provide students with this chance to collect scientific research and be these scientists, but then you can take it a step further, and our data is open source. So if you said, Missy, may I please have all of the 2022 glyphosate data? After I've gotten them all from our partners, I can pass it on to you, and you can do some really cool analyses with your students. So here's just some examples of data from last year. So this is glyphosate. Remember, that's that common herbicide in Roundup. You see it in the news a lot because of the unknown consequences to some of our seagrasses and organisms. But so, here's just some basic data by county. Fecal coliform, remember, that's the bacteria in mammals. So of the 47 sites that we had last year, about a quarter of them did not show fecal. Obviously, 3/4 did. So all really valuable information. We've had schools and students use this data for science fair, research projects, creating those documentaries like I mentioned. We had one school create a beautiful school mural inspired by a day in the life. Last year, we started something called Data Jam. This is a chance for anyone really in the community, students or adults, to take real science data sets produced by Orca citizen scientists, a day in the life being one of them. They will analyze the data, they'll interpret it, and then instead of writing a report, they create some kind of artistic display. And then we put that on display and provide awards and a ceremony, and it's super fun. And so we do that in May. So that could be something that you would do as an extension to this field day. And then when I was in New York, we had some really ambitious educators that would start doing some GIS modeling, and we even partnered with a local laboratory up there to start looking at some DNA analysis on the invertebrate dragonflies to see whether or not there are any unique species. And so, again, this is just a springboard to what could be, and whether you take the basic model or you take the more advanced model, it's valuable. So this is just what could be to inspire you. Okay, so what does this all mean to me? I've kind of laid out the project for you, what is entailed, but what do you actually need to do now if you're logged onto this call? So if you are an educator, or if you're going to be the primary person responsible for a day in the life, then again, you really just need to figure out some basics. How much time do I have on October 6th for this event? You really need about 2 to 3 hours. And even 2 to 3 hours means that you are mindfully moving through those stations. So 2 to 3 hours is under the impression that you're going to come in and your students are going to do some form of rotation. If you just need to have the time to come in, knock out one station, get back on the bus and go, then you need about an hour. But your students need to know what they're doing and how they're doing it beforehand. So the timing is really kind of be one of those things, more the better, but if you had to do it in a less amount of time, you could, but of course, more is better. You need to think about a location. So where are you located? What sampling site would be nearby? And how many students do I want to bring? We have some schools that will only choose one class will go, they'll do it. We have other schools that will bring an entire grade level. We have some schools that will just kind of pick and choose who can come and who can't. And then we even have one who does it as an after school program. So they have a select number of students that they do this with after school. So it doesn't matter if it's during the school day, before or after, it just has to be done on October 6th. As I mentioned before, your responsibility as the educator and really as the environmental professional or environmental partner is to help ensure that you're collecting usable and reliable data. So that it comes down to making sure that you've looked at the manual, you've had your students practice, and you know how you're going to run the day. Obviously, you're gonna have to figure out how many students you want to participate. I kind of mentioned that already. And then when you're choosing your sample location, just thinking about that purposefully. Is it large enough for my students? Can I spread out enough? Do I need a large spot? Some of the coolest a day in the life locations are those that are small and hard to get to. But again, you have to be smart about it. You have to think about what makes sense for you and your class. Do I need bathroom access? Do I need to make sure that there's going to be a bathroom available for my students? And then obviously, I'm sure this just comes with the territory with any school, but you'd want to be sure that you have your students filling out a waiver and all those photograph waivers and all of that good stuff, because we would want to be able to utilize your photos ideally as well if you're willing to share them. You also are responsible for arranging the transportation. So we don't do it on our end. That comes on the responsibility of you as the school, but you are in charge of that. And then you have to ask yourself, do I want an environmental partner or do I want a school? And so if the answer is yes, then you can either utilize your own resources. Maybe you know someone who works at Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge. They would be able to help you. Then perfect. There is your environmental partner. If you need help finding one, then I will do my best to do that. We don't always have enough environmental partners for the number of schools, so I will say that, but we will do our best. I already kind of mentioned that you've got to be sure that you looked at that educator manual, you know what the students are supposed to be doing, and that you can then communicate to your students. So it's always very helpful to make sure that you have your students practice using the water kits beforehand. I cannot emphasize that enough. Practice, practice, practice. If you need equipment, so maybe you don't have this Lamont kit, you don't have a budget to spend to purchase this kit or our kilometers, we can provide those to you if we know that you're going to be participating. So we do have several equipment bins that we can loan out, and we would be happy to do that. If you do have a budget and you want to be able to utilize these kits further throughout the school year, then I can certainly pass along the links. Actually, they're on our resource page. You can click on those and you can order those. So we can either loan them to you or you can purchase them. But that is another piece of the responsibility, is just kind of making sure you have everything that you need to be successful. And sometimes that comes with just borrowing equipment from your environmental partner. The last kind of little tidbits I wanted to mention for the educator roles and responsibilities is that it's recommended that if you're going to be a person who is going to, or you envision yourself being an educator that has a tank in your classroom, who might like to take some of the critters that you caught in a day in the life and bring them back to the classroom to learn from in a tank, you need an aquatic species collection permit. And so most environmental organizations have a staff member that possesses that, and that's why it's also really nice to partner. But if you're an educator and you foresee yourself having that, then just kind of go visit this website. You can attend an in-person class, or now they're offering virtual classes. It's $35 for 3 years, and it's totally worth it. So I recommend that. And then I do recognize that this is a lot, right? This is something that you have to commit to. You cannot do it halfway. You've got to go full on. And so we do provide a field sampling training for anybody who would like to attend. We try to do one in each county just because, again, we're spreading ourselves all over the place. But these are the upcoming ones. If you weren't able to make one of these and you really needed some kind of support in the field, then we could try to do something different. But this is what we're offering right now. So we've got a couple at the end of this month and then a couple in September. And so let's kind of transition to if you're an environmental partner. So as an environmental partner, if you're going to support a school and your primary role is not to be the one who's collecting the data, then your job is really to help support those teachers. How can you help those students collect the most usable and reliable data as possible? Maybe it's that you, or even if you're able to recruit some of your volunteers from within, are able to position themselves at each one of the stations. Or maybe if it's just you, you say, well, I'm really strong in water chemistry. I would be happy to guide and provide the guidance there and support at your water quality station. And so it's just a conversation with your teacher. Where do you need me? What can I do for you? This is what I have. These are the resources I have to share. And so it's really about forming this collaboration between the teacher and the partner and how you support each other. And so again, it does take a little bit of work on your end too, in that you've got to be willing to engage in that conversation and also learn the manual. But again, most likely this is stuff that you do often. And so if anything, it's just a really great day to get out in the field and help some amazing students. This is new. I just kind of went through each year, things change, and I have some teachers that have done this all 5 years or all 4 years are doing it again the 5th year. I have some teachers who have moved on, or some environmental partners who have changed. And so I don't necessarily have the same teams sampling the same sites. And so at this moment in time, and a lot changes very, very quickly, these are some of the sites that I know are available and some of the partners that are willing to help in those spots. So if you're in Brevard County, we have the Barrier Island Center or Sanctuary. They have been very lovely in being able to help us monitor the last couple of years. They have a site available along the Lagoon, and they're able to assist you. If you are again in Brevard County near Geiger Point or Kiwanis Park, that is a site that's available, and we have an environmental partner from Brevard County willing to help. So there are some spots that if you want to just kind of plug yourself right in, we can do that. Otherwise, it just takes a little bit more coordinating and moving things around. So what's next? You think about what's best for your organization, your school. Can I participate? Can I commit? If the answer is yes or maybe, let me know. Shoot me an email. Let me know that, you know, I'm thinking about it. This is where I am. This is a site that might work. Or do you have any suggestions? Let me know what you know, basically. From that point, you'll kind of let me know, again, like if there's a preferred site or whether you want to start a new site. And then we just start the conversation. And so on my end, I'm just there to assist you, coordinate you, piece you guys together, and then set you up so that you are successful on October 6th. So one thing I want to keep in mind is for anybody, if there's anything preventing you, if you don't have the equipment, you're not sure if you can do it, if this just seems overwhelming, that's when you say, pick up the phone and we talk to each other on the phone and we work it out, because that is what we do best, is helping our partners succeed. So with that, we can unmute ourselves, and if you have questions, we can certainly start the conversations, or you can put it in the chat.
Hello.
Hi.
My question is, if we are borrowing kits, how long do we have them? And when, I guess similar to that, when would we pick them up?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks for bringing that up. So we're in the process right now of assembling our kits and getting all the information ready to go. So if you wanted that by early September, we could arrange for you to pick that up. So our headquarters is in Vero Beach. I know some of you are in Volusia, Northern Brevard, Marin County, and so we try to make it as easy as possible to disperse the equipment, but then also there is a sample of water that you all collect on the day of that we want. And so when you collect that water, you go home, you go back to your school, you go back to your organization, you shove it in the freezer. And then about a week or 2 weeks after, in the day in the life, one of the Orca staff members or volunteers will come to your site, pick up your equipment and that frozen sample and move on. So after a day in the life, you have it for about 2 weeks or so. And beforehand, like I said, we can get it to you as early as early September. Otherwise, we try to get it to you as soon as we can.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, quick question. Is there anyone here in Vero Beach who's doing it or who has done it for any one of the past 5 years that I can speak with?
Yeah, for sure. So is this Mike?
Yes. How
Okay,
are you
hi,
doing?
Mike. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, so I'm just going to rattle off some people who've done it before. So Nikki Mosblek at Vero Beach High School has done it the last 4 years. This will be her 5th. We've had Christina Braco at Sebastian Charter Junior High do it for the last 5 years. Joan Martinelli at Storm Grove Middle School has done it for the last 5 years. So do any of those people sound familiar? Because those would be some great resources to start. Otherwise,
I don't know any of them, but can you repeat their names again so that I can?
Do you want me to connect you? Do you want me to just pass along their email addresses to you?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, I can do that for you. But we have had every middle school and almost every high school participate from Indian River County at some point or another. Except for elementary, I should say. Elementary has, we've had Treasure Coast Elementary participate a little bit here or there, and a few others. But yeah, I'll send you the email, those emails.
And what site were they at? Like where along the Indian River Lagoon?
So we've got a couple. Sebastian Elementary is someone who has also done it year after year. Riverview, Riverside, McWilliams, Gifford Boat Dock, Round Island. Putting down the spot here, Mike. And there's a couple of others. So there's several in Indian River County that you could choose from.
Okay, yeah, because I'm just trying to picture in my mind a group of kids. You know, I know that someplace along the riverside in the park, it's like you can get to the lagoon, but there are like pathways and it's not very spacious.
Yeah, so you just, again, like that's where kind of being mindful of like how many students am I talking about? Like McWilliams boat ramp has tables, it has bathrooms. It's not a huge site, but it would work for like a class. If you needed the whole grade level, then there's a site in Sebastian that I'm thinking that that's ideal because it's huge. So I think it's just one of those things where you have to think about like what would be best, how many students do I want, and then you communicate with me and I try to help you find a site that's conducive.
Hi, my name is Ashley Kobelgard from Mariposa, 5th grade.
Hi.
Hi, I have a question for you. Are there any other elementary schools in St. Lucie County that have done this?
Where are you from?
So Mariposa is in Port St. Lucie East.
Okay, that's what you just said. So Sunlight Christian has done it.
Okay.
Oh my goodness, my brain.
Sorry, I know.
No, my goodness, no. I should.
My principal is asking. She was grilling me, so I just want to be able to come back and give her some information.
You know, that's completely understandable. We have had mainly middle school and high schools from St. Lucie participate. We mainly have elementary schools. It's just the way that it works, right? Like so Brevard County has a lot of elementary schools as opposed to high schools. So it's just the way that it's been in the past.
Okay.
I would say that 5th grade, like I mentioned before, is really the youngest we'd want to go.
Right. And do you have somewhere on your website a list of the standards that this?
That's a great question. It's not on the website, but I have it in some lesson plans that we've done. And so if that would help justify, I can pass those on to you. Yeah.
I would love that. And I can put my email address in the chat.
That would be great. Yes, you got it.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.